La vision stratégique de Sa Majesté le Roi Mohammed VI de créer une plateforme portuaire et industrielle dans le détroit de Gibraltar a été décisive pour attirer des opérateurs internationaux et nationaux de grand nom et ainsi renforcer un écosystème industriel et logistique diversifié. Le classement 2020 du Financial Times FDI Intelligence place la plateforme industrielle Tangemed comme deuxième zone économique spéciale à travers le monde, principalement grâce à une proposition de valeur en lien avec l'attente des acteurs globaux. D'abord, un positionnement stratégique à l'intersection des flux maritimes majeurs et à proximité des marchés cibles, notamment européens, ainsi qu'une accessibilité à plus de 180 ports et 70 pays, un ensemble intégré d'une offre infrastructurelle de premier plan et d'une réserve foncière importante, une gestion intégrée des différentes zones d'activité par un opérateur unique et un tissu industriel, quelques quinzaines d'années plus tard, solidement implanté. De plus, la plateforme industrielle est adossée au premier complexe portuaire de la région méditerranéenne et du continent africain, développé sur une superficie de 2000 hectares et départagé en 6 zones d'activité. L'expérience de Tangemed comme modèle de développement pourrait éventuellement inspirer et soutenir d'autres pays africains à travers la création de dynamiques et de synergies avec les différents acteurs des zones économiques dans le cadre du partage de savoir-faire, des expériences et de la reproduction des bonnes pratiques. À ce titre, Tangemed et d'autres partenaires ont pris l'initiative de créer l'association africaine des zones économiques AEZO en novembre 2015 avec la participation des principales zones économiques africaines et que nous avons graduellement essayé de développer des liens et des relations plus fortes entre les différents opérateurs économiques. Dans le cadre de la coopération avec d'autres zones économiques spéciales africaines, nous explorons aujourd'hui des partenariats avec des pays comme le Nigeria, le Gabon, le Ghana, la Côte d'Ivoire, la Libye et d'autres confrères à travers le continent. Cette nouvelle étape dans la dynamique de développement continental, grâce à cette association, sera, à notre avis, un élément fort de l'attractivité de nouveaux investisseurs internationaux en Afrique. Cette initiative de l'AEZO et les débats de cet annuel meeting sont un moment important pour le partage d'expériences, pour l'amélioration continue de notre démarche en tant qu'opérateur économique. L'initiative s'inscrit dans une nouvelle ère de développement du continent qui se renforce d'année en année. Les sujets traités sont structurels et fondamentaux, sachant que l'objectif ultime de l'AEZO est de contribuer à une croissance collective de nos pays respectifs via le renforcement des zones économiques spéciales africaines. Ces débats permettent des échanges de haut niveau, et particulièrement dans les circonstances exceptionnelles de l'année 2020, ainsi que le renforcement de liens professionnels, amicaux et culturels. Bonne réussite à cet événement.
Well, I bring the compliments of all Nigerians to participants, fellow participants, and the Secretariat. And I'm happy to be here specifically to talk about what Nigeria is doing currently. And we take particular attention to the inclusion of Nigeria in this, in utilizing the Special Economic Zone as a strategy for economic development. And we're aware of what is happening right now with the African Continental Trade Agreement. And we are trying as much as possible to improve aspects of how we conduct ourselves in doing business in Nigeria to make us more competitive, realizing that this is how we can actually encourage the inflow of foreign direct investments. Currently, we are managing investment inflows for free zones in Nigeria, fertilizer companies, and a deep sea port, all amounting to an inflow of more than $20 billion. This to us is a challenging, daunting task, and we hope that within the next 2 to 3 years, some of these investments will come to fruition. This to us is an aspect of showcasing the fact that the free zone concept has come to stay and is going to be part of what African Continental Trade Agreement. We've we are also trying to ensure that some of the challenges that we are facing are being tackled, which we are now tagging the special bill to revamp and much more potent and more positive, so as to be able to attract the much more needed investments to this part of the world. We are also very, very conversant of the need for us to ensure that business is seamless here, and also to ensure that investors have a safe haven in doing business in the free zones in Nigeria. The special economic zone strategy has also had a lot of support from our president, who recently has designated about 6 special economic zones across the country. The next financial year, we intend to start the development of 3 of these zones as partly public zones and with some PPP concepts being part of what we intend to do. One key project that we shall be unveiling is what we call the medical special economic zone. We're all aware of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the African subcontinent, as well as world global logistics, as well as the global economy. One of the fallouts for us is the need for us to have a special medical economic zone, thereby bringing in the medical facilities that Nigerians normally would go to abroad to Nigeria in a special economic zone with special incentives. We will be partnering with the private sector and some government sector players. This has generated a lot of interest from the IFC and some other international organizations, and very soon we shall be presenting this to AEZO as well. I'm happy to be here and glad to be part of the discussions that will be taking place. Thank you.
So thank you very much. First of all, foremost, I would like to thank the African Economic Zone Organization and the event organizers, Mr. Fuad Brini, which is a good friend of mine, chairman of Tanjim Med Group, and Mr. Mohamedi Tazi Rifi, also a good friend of mine, president of AEZO, for organizing this wonderful and professional event, which allow to gather this important number of esteemed participants. I would like also to thank the partners of this event, as well as the African Union Ambassador, His Excellency Albert Mushunga, the African Free Trade Area Secretary, Dr. Francis Magani, and the UNCTAD Senior Director, Mr. Richard Bolwinch. Okay, coming back to your question, first of all, I want to mention that there is several straits in the world where the ships transit. No need to mention that 80% of the world trade is through the shipping. I will mention first the Strait of Malacca, which is located on the Natuna Sea between Singapore and Indian Ocean, and Singapore and Malaysia, connecting the Indian Ocean and Natun Sea. Then we come to Hormuz between Iran and Oman, connecting Persian and Arabian Gulf to the Indian Ocean. Then you come to Djibouti, Bab el-Mandeb, connecting Indian Ocean to the Red Sea. Sorry, I started from the east. Then you come to the Suez Canal, connecting the Red Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. Then you have Gibraltar, Morocco. Shall I say Spain or UK, the other side in the European continent. connecting Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. Then you go to Panama Canal, connecting the Pacific to the Atlantic. So Djibouti is located one of these main straight transit points connecting seas, and Djibouti is located on the third most busiest route in the world, shipping route, which we have 30,000 ships transiting on the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb between Djibouti and Yemen. So we are benefiting for this position, not only building ports, but also benefiting from what now we call the sea blue. Djibouti was mainly built at the beginning of last century for supply, fuel supply, bunkering. And that time the bunker was coal. From coal we moved to fuel, heavy fuel, petroleum products. So we are revived that business. We should have lost on 1967 when the war between Egypt and Israel, where the Suez Canal was closed for almost 8 years. So we revived that business in 2017. We are bunkering now almost 5 ships per day, with a total revenue of 85 million per year. We are also launched the building of ship repair yard. So from bunkering points, supply points, we moved to ship repair yard, and also we built for the last, let's say 10 years, 5 new ports. In total today we have 6 ports. Since I returned from Nigeria, Tinkan Island, I served as a MD of Tinkan Island Port. I hope Professor Adesojoli hear me. Between 2008 and 2011, I was working on the Tinkan Island Port. So since I came back to the other side of the continent, we launched this massive project to build ports. What is worth to mention also is the geography of the continent. In the west coast of the continent, between Morocco to Namibia, we have 21 coastal countries. In the east coast, from Egypt to South Africa, we have only 9 coastal countries. In the continent, we have 17 landlocked countries, and the majority of these landlocked countries are in the east coast. Over 600 million population. So sometimes people, they don't understand why we are building ports. It's just because East Africa coastal countries have a long sea coast. From Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti. Somalia has the longest sea coast in the continent, 3,200 kilometers, locked down because of the civil war. We started the first shipping line to serve those ports. Then you go to Kenya, then Tanzania, Mozambique, huge, very long sea coast. So we are building ports to connect the landlocked countries in our region, 10 landlocked countries out of 17, even the DRC Congo. I consider myself, DRC Congo is landlocked countries because they have only 40 kilometers of sea coast on the Atlantic Ocean. That's why Djibouti people, they don't understand sometimes why you are building so many ports for a small country. Relatively small, because Djibouti has the same size as Rwanda and Burundi, which have 26,000 square kilometers. So I will stop here for the first question, and Thank you.
Mr. Abubakar, maybe a last question before we leave you. We wanted just to know, what do you think about the deliberation of the AEZO of this annual meeting?
It was very interesting and very good and very helpful. And mainly AEZO, in AEZO we are going to share experience, and we can pool also our resources to not duplicate. Our main target should be human capital. Training. We have to train our people. I always say business is like a soccer, football. Le ballon est toujours rond, mais c'est l'équipe qui fait la différence.
No, thanks very much. Greetings to the panelists and the participants. We are very happy to be here as well. Obviously, the AEDC, Industrial Development Corporation, is a corporation of government to support industrial development in South Africa in general. But its role also is to promote the very same industrial development within the SEZ that we run. So the role of the SEZ unit within the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition obviously is to deal with the issues of policy, policy development, and then the issues of legislation development, and then the development of programs and incentives for the special economic zones. As you know, we have a suite of incentives to attract local and foreign direct investment. But from our side, really, the main attraction that we provide is to provide the top-class infrastructure in our special economic zones. The other incentives, like the tax incentives, the VAT or sales tax, as other countries call it, and all those things are just an add-on. But really, what we promise people is that we're going to give you a top-class infrastructure, a reasonable high-quality logistics infrastructure for your exports and local sales. So that's the role. Obviously, the IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation, support through funding and financing the companies that comes into our special economic zones, and also those companies that are outside of the special economic zones, even in the neighboring countries in our continent of Africa. So that's the distinction between the role of the Industrial Development Corporation and then the Special Economic Zones Unit within the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. We have special economic zones that are in the borders between South Africa and the neighboring countries. If I can make an example of two of these special economic zones, a special economic zone between South Africa and Zimbabwe in Musina at Makado. And then we have another one at the border with Mozambique. For us, really, the special economic zones are a tool, you know, to enhance regional integration in terms of cross-border manufacturing and also cross-border trade. So, for instance, the special economic zone that is between us and Zimbabwe is a high energy metallurgical cluster special economic zone. So this special economic zone is going to process, is a new one, is still being developed, but it's going to process, you know, all the metals that are in that region, including the region of in Zimbabwe. So ferrochrome, manganese, chromium, and all those raw materials, they are going to be processed there. But we are not going to source only the raw materials from Zimbabwe. What we are discussing with the government of Zimbabwe now is that some of the processing of the raw materials will happen in Zimbabwe across the border, and then those products will then be shipped into South Africa, into our special economic zone for further processing. That region from the South African side is very dry. It doesn't have a lot of rain. So we are also discussing with Zimbabwe in terms of utilizing some of their water from their side, more especially in the river that divides South Africa and Zimbabwe, to be used in this high energy metallurgical cluster. So really, this special economic zone has created this program where both countries now, they are not just talking, but on the ground, they are working in terms of developing the industries and promoting trade. Between us and Mozambique, we have a special economic zone that is focusing on agro-processing. Again, a fairly new special economic zone, but the discussions are ongoing between the two countries in terms of how we are going to feed these special economic zones with the products that come from both countries. So we think really the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to open up even more these kinds of discussions and these kinds of collaboration in terms of having projects on the ground, not just a lot of talking, but projects on the ground being supported by both countries that are participating in that particular special economic zone in the border. Thank you very much, ma'am. I think I'll stop here for a moment. It's the first time I attend, I have to be honest, but I'm very excited with the organization. It's a top-class organization that you guys have provided. And I think it will help the African countries, in terms of sharing experiences, in terms of enhancing and fostering, the collaboration between and amongst the African countries, more especially those countries that have this program of special economic zone and other industrial facilities like the industrial parks and the other zones. So I think well done to you and your colleagues, and we are looking forward for further participation in the future.